because our life has been really shaped in many ways by so many institutions, and individuals have not had a way of being responsive to institutions. And I think that, what we're starting to see is that the crowd is finding a way to come together in their power to really become a entity that can engage institutions, right? I don't think they replace them, but it's good to have a voice. Where we took this framework, we talked about how the technology has advanced. And then what we started to write about it and realize is that as this technology evolution and revolution has occurred, it's led to certain behaviors and behavioral, what we call megatrends, that are really changing the way that society has operated. And at a very macro level, what's been so exciting, Raoul, is that they are really changing the empowerment of individuals, and they are giving individuals more and more ability to do things on their own. And it's really changing the dynamics of commerce and government and really everything that we do in our daily lives.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've spent a long time thinking about and spoken to people like Balaji about as well is this idea of this network states. Because, where you and I grew up, we live in a village or a town, and it was a physical state. And yes, we used a mobile phone to call our friends who were somewhere else, and not a mobile phone, a landline. And, we connected. But now we exist virtually anywhere and anywhere in communities and societies. All of the businesses we work from home, or we work, with colleagues around the world, and it's seamless now. It seems that idea, this distributed network idea, is a big thing. And we're seeing it not only in crypto, but we're seeing it just in how humanity is operating in societal level.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because these networks transcend a lot of the boundaries that used to define how we lived our lives, right? Governmental boundaries, corporate boundaries, familial boundaries, right? Community boundaries. These are all boundaries that have been eroded as these networks really allow individuals to spread, and we call it in the paper, build their personal brand by who they affiliate with and how they affiliate. And that is something that was just not possible as little as even 10 years ago.
Yeah, but it also changes society in a more fragmented way. So we fragmented anyway by physical geography or where you went to school and all of that stuff. And we've broken that all apart, and then we're redoing it online, but in different ways, in a more fluid way, because you don't have to move house anymore. You can just leave one society and move to another instantaneously online, according to your needs, desires, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's enabling, I think, a new power, right, to emerge from the crowd, right? That ability to come together is creating a new, almost body of both political and sociological and even commercial weight that sometimes feels very out of control because it's a crowd. And we all know that sometimes crowds really behave in ways that are irrational or illogical, as well as being very effective sometimes at coming together. So it's really putting, I think, a lot of strains, and a lot of, I think, what we're seeing in a society today is a result of people really making this transition and being in the middle of these two models.
But it also feels like, as a society, we're learning how to deal in crowds, how to work together in ways that we didn't do before. And, I look at it and think of, one of the big online movements has been the investing movement. Firstly, it was Occupy Wall Street, which was a physical movement. A bunch of people went to camp on Wall Street to protest. Then really what happened was GameStop was the same kind of people, but doing it en masse online and taking a positive action to kind of rebel against the system and to try and be less disadvantaged in that system. Now, whether that worked or not, that's up for debate. But it was like a genie came out of the bottle. And we've just seen it with bank runs. It's like the crowd now is more powerful, faster, and more knowledgeable than any individual. You know, this hive mind idea that I'm stuck with, I think, is a huge breakthrough for people.
And what I find so fascinating about that is the variety of people that being part of this crowd really appeals to, right? I like to point out to people, and you brought up the whole meme stock, right, with GameStop. My 86-year-old father and my 18-year-old nephew were in the same community talking about what meme stocks to invest in, and they were both equally as excited about it. And I did love that aspect of it. But there is something, I think important and empowering about that ability, because our life has been really shaped in many ways by so many institutions, and individuals have not had a way of being responsive to institutions. And I think that, what we're starting to see is that the crowd is finding a way to come together in their power to really become a entity that can engage institutions, right? I don't think they replace them, but it's good to have a voice. And that's one of the things we talk about in our new paper, is this idea that the crowd has given an ability of individuals to both have a voice and to engineer an exit. And one of the most interesting statistics that we found in the paper was there was a study, and it said when, we see these boycotts online, boycott this company because of whatever reason they're doing that you disagree with. They said that the boycott itself actually has very little impact on the company, but the coverage of the boycott, the national media coverage of the boycott, for every day that the national media covers a boycott like that, the price of the underlying stock tends to decline by 1% per day. And that they said that in more than 25% of the cases, it pushes the company to actually acquiesce to the demands of the crowd. And just to even think that that could have that kind of impact, that was something that was unimaginable 20 years ago.
Yeah, I just think there was a new form of democracy that is more egalitarian, because you vote by being an active participant in a particular movement online. And it also highlights how out of date institutions are. And I don't know if you've read the book The Fourth Turning by Neil Howe and William Strauss. I mean, this
It's
feels to
literally
me,
sitting here on my desk, Raoul. That's so funny.
I reread the last chapter of that book maybe every 6 months, because it's so. He's got the new version coming out, which is The
Can't
Fourth
wait.
Turning is Now, I think it's called. So I can't
Yeah.
wait for that. But it feels that we're at that fourth turning moment where institutions are going to get reshaped because of how we're now operating online. We're seeing it with the system of money, with
Yeah.
Web3. We're seeing it just in these online communities, that it makes government structures as they are feel a little bit outmoded.
Well, and one of the things we look at in the paper is that this idea that because of all the technology changes we've experienced, individuals are actually able to act like an institution now. We
That's
call
right.
it the institutionalization of the individual. And I think that alone really is pushing the boundary on what institutions can implement without really responding to the feedback loops that they generate. And that was always, I think, a key part of what's been missing in how society operates, right? And now we're starting to see a much more, I hesitate to say, but maybe equal playing field where people can really influence back the institutions and change them.
And I thought the Constitution DAO was a good signal, much like Occupy Wall Street. Didn't amount to anything, but it was the seed of an idea that will not go back in the bottle. The genie was out with the Constitution DAO, and I think we'll see people coalescing capital instantaneously around causes that wasn't
Yep,
possible before.
absolutely. I loved that too, and I was rooting for them.